So Borderlands 3 has been out for just about 7 months now. I can't believe it's been that long, actually. Mainly because I've yet to beat it. And that's because I've been doing a co-op playthrough with Hey It's Salt, and we can only play every other week or so. We're nearing the end of the main campaign, and I had this thought the other night while we were playing. Borderlands 3 is not as good as Borderlands 2. Let me explain. Now, I haven't sat down and played the game consistently enough to fully immerse myself and enjoy it as much as I would have liked, and I understand that is playing a factor into my logic. However, I feel like there's a much deeper reasoning as to why I feel its predecessor is the superior game, and it has to do with these two. As I mentioned earlier, I haven't beaten the game yet. However, we did just clear the boss fight for Troy, and honestly, it felt a little lackluster. Not the fight in terms of mechanics, but in terms of narrative weight. Yes, he didn't come off as too much of a threat, but after the fight concluded, we both kind of sat there, watched the cutscene that followed, and I just kind of was like, oh, he's dead. Yay. The reason I have such a carefree, uninterested mindset towards the Calypsos is because to me, they aren't all that interesting. I mean, yes, the leeching of powers is cool, but they don't seem like a dangerous threat that I'm pressured to stop or chase after. And that is because of one man who came before. Now, if you saw the thumbnail of this video, you would likely have wagered I'd be comparing some aspects of Borderlands 2 to Borderlands 3. And you're right. Except, it's not any of the gameplay mechanics. Although I think the UI in Borderlands 3 is a bit clunky, and I think it was a lot smoother in Borderlands 2, but hey, that's just me. But it's the fact that, in my opinion, Handsome Jack is one of, if not the main reason, Borderlands 2 was a better game. Jack has become one of the most iconic video game characters, let alone villains of the last decade. In turn, he's become the Achilles heel of this latest installment for Gearbox. You see, Gearbox did such a fantastic job when creating Jack. They made him entertaining, multifaceted, a jerk, and honestly, by the end of the pre-sequel, an overall well-rounded character. But for the sake of this particular argument, I'm not going to discuss the pre-sequel. Because they did such an amazing job with Jack, they set the standard for themselves relatively high. And that's the reason Tyreen and Troy fall short. It's because Gearbox didn't meet their own standard. When you make one of the most iconic villains your next main antagonist, should be on the same level as them, at least, if not striving to surpass them. In my opinion, of course. That doesn't mean they will, but that should be your goal as a writer and as a creator. See, I just don't care about the motives of the twins, and they don't antagonize me in a way that makes me look forward to progressing the plot like Jack did. I wanted to like them, I really did, but in the end, I just really couldn't care less. Now, before I forget, there is one other detail that I think makes this game fall short compared to its predecessors, and that is the narrative. At the end of Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, we felt the weight of the actions performed in those games. We felt the repercussions of what we had just done. I mean, shit, at the end of the pre-sequel, we were told that war was coming, and the Crimson Raiders were gonna need every hand they could to stop it. And yet, in Borderlands 3, half the Vault Hunters from Borderlands 2 are completely missing. I know that in the new DLC, Gage will be making an appearance, but they made it sound like Lilith was going to have to raise an army. At the time of our last play session, I still never felt that sense of scale and urgency. And I think I know why. Introducing Anthony Birch. Anthony Birch was the lead writer of Borderlands 2, but he didn't return to helm 3. You can definitely tell that. It's not that the writing in Borderlands 3 is bad. In fact, some of the writing is really good, Some of my favorite bits of line come from the Vault Hunters you play as. Zane has this great line where he says, "You couldn't hit the arse of a banjo." Shit. What is it? You couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo, or something like that. Flack has some great lines about the hunt and returning to the hunt and all this crazy stuff. But overall, it feels flat. Like I said, there are the moments, but overall it feels flat. At least compared to Borderlands 2. See, the characters don't feel as bright and punchy. And that goes for the returning characters, as well as the new cast. See, the returning characters almost play it safe. Minus maybe Hammerlock, in which we get a little bit more detail, and one thing that happens with Tannis that I don't want to spoil, that I'm personally not the biggest fan of. But overall, all the returning characters are pretty much the same as in the previous games. They have the same, almost the same motives, they have the same demeanors, nothing about them really changes. Now the new characters, well, again, they don't bring anything new to the table. I mean, we meet some of the foundry owners for some of the big companies, but they aren't too memorable. But overall, the plot feels a little sluggish at times. There's no sense of urgency, at least to me there's not. Now, Borderlands 3 isn't a bad game, but I can't rate it higher than the previous main entry. If you're a longtime fan of the series, you've probably already played it. However, if you're just starting out, I recommend playing the previous games before coming to 3. See the highlights the franchise has to offer. It'll be a better experience in my opinion anyway. With all that said, let me know down below how you feel about Borderlands 3. Do you think it stacks up to its older brother? Or do you agree with me and think it doesn't make the cut? I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, if you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more stuff like this in the future. And until next time, guys, don't forget that being average doesn't mean you're not extraordinary. Take care.